Welcome everybody to a full build Friday that I am almost wary to start. The time has come, ladies and gentlemen, for the month of anime. A month entirely dedicated to builds for anime characters. A style, genre, whatever you want to call it, that I'm not particularly into. Don't come at me. Nevertheless, people want to see these builds, so I'll bring them. Starting off with a build for Esdeath from Akami ga Kill.
Will we ever find an enemy out there who can satisfy my appetite?
And hey, if I can make builds for characters from a medium I'm not keen on, I'm sure you can find it in your very generous hearts to like the video, and maybe even subscribe to the channel. But I suppose even if you don't, we have some build goals to discuss. Esdeath grew up hunting powerful monsters in a harsh environment, becoming a highly capable survivalist and cook. She became a soldier, and was granted an artifact called the Demon's Extract, which grants her the power to conjure and manipulate ice. She has used this to create piercing icicles and freeze people or objects solid, but has also developed unique moves to pull off with it. For example, her Ice Cavalry summons an entire army of ice soldiers that she can control. She can drain the power of these frozen forces to fuel her Ice Commander-in-Chief, which creates a massive snowstorm that swiftly turns a region into one of harsh winter, and thereby enhances her own power. Finally, she can, for some reason, freeze time with Mahabdama. Aside from these powers, Esdeath is an absolute physical menace who is the strongest member of the army that she serves as a general of, and is incredibly deadly with her rapier. Bringing that all together, Esdeath is an extremely skilled and capable warrior, and a strategist whose connection to an artifact affords her control over ice and cold. This allows her to create a legion of icy soldiers and summon harsh winter storms. It also, as I said, allows her to literally freeze time. Getting into the details of this death-dealing duelist, Esdeath makes use of the human ancestry, but will take an undying versatile heritage. This starts with a connection to the ice and snow that she wields, and is deepened by the Rhyme Soul ancestry feat, which gives her resistance to cold damage. As a human, she gets 2 free boosts. One will go to her intelligence, and the other will go to dexterity, with the intent of having her rely on that for combat. But from what I've heard, strength would make just as much sense for her. I'll say go for whichever feels more right to you, based on what you know of the character. Moving on to her background, while Esdeath has a storied military career, I want to represent her history as a brutal survivalist and slayer of beasts through the hunter background. This makes her trained in survival and tanning lore, while also providing her with the Survey Wildlife skill feat, which will help her figure out what prey lurks in a region. With the background boost this provides, she increases her dexterity once more, and then takes another free boost to her intelligence, which I want to mention is entirely mechanics based depending on the class that we will be using. Speaking of, Esdeath is going to be a dex-based Magus, a class that mixes mastery over weaponry with an aptitude for magic, and will serve to simulate her ice artifact and her skill with the blade. As a Magus, she selects a hybrid study. From among the options presented, we want the one that will have the most benefit to one-handed weapon wielders, limiting us to Aloof Firmament or Laughing Shadow. Of those two, I prefer the latter, as one of my friends, Decaf, suggested that the Dimensional Assault focus spell that this grants could be thought of her using her Mahabdama. The seeming teleport is actually her just freezing time and then moving normally. And that's probably the closest I'll get to that idea. The big thing of the Magus class is their spell strike ability, which has been remastered slightly to work with saving throw based spells, and is why I leaned into her intelligence attribute. So, for her cantrips, she uses options such as Frostbite and Gouging Claw, but also picks up things like Glass Shield, which I would reflavor as being made of ice rather than glass. She can also take Snowball as her first rank spell, which is dreadfully low damage, but is a spell attack roll, which will go better with her general design. When it comes to her skills, she becomes trained in Arcana as a Magus, and will also add Acrobatics, Athletics, Crafting, Intimidation, and Society to her roster of trained skills. She additionally finalizes her ability boost with increases to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Intelligence. With her predominantly using a rapier, Dex is going to be her main combat stat, but Strength will be important in demonstrating her monstrous might, and intelligence will be needed for her DC-based spells. Setting off at 2nd level, we'll start with First Frost, an artifact archetype feat of the Gelid Shard, which gives her access to some more freezing cantrips and allows her to eventually tap into greater frost magic. In regards to that ice-based magic, she adds Chilling Spray to her spell repertoire, giving her another way to unleash cold damage in a cone. It does have similar damage to Snowball, but at least it hits in an area. As for her skill feat, I want to play into Esdeath's ability as a hunter through the Forager skill feat, letting her harvest more meat from the prey that she hunts down. Despite their martial capabilities, Magi don't get any class features at 3rd level. Instead, they get a new rank of spells. Esdeath does at least get a skill increase to Intimidation so that she can become an expert of it. She also gains Fleet as a general feat, as that speed will play a part in her Dimensional Assault. Now going back to talking about the spells, she'll snag Summon Elemental from her 2nd rank spells, so that she can eventually call forth Icy Infantry to resemble her Ice Cavalry ability. We look at some more frosty feats with 4th level Snowcaster, giving her basic spellcasting benefits that are limited to ice spells. She can get another Snowball here for the extra casting of it, and then grabs Quick Jump as her skill feat, letting her fire into the fray with a jump and then still be able to unleash a Spell Strike or something similar. She does also get some more 2nd rank spells from her class, and an option that might be a little out there is Elemental Zone. She can use this to enhance the cold damage of her spells with the Water trait, to resemble the empowering effects of the Winter Wonderland created by her Ice Commander-in-Chief. From there, we'll open on 5th level with ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, and Charisma. Through that increased intelligence, Esdeath becomes trained in Diplomacy, and will take her actual skill increase to Acrobatics. She becomes an expert with her weapons and reflex saves, but I was a little stumped on her Ancestry feat. I ultimately settled on Natural Ambition to take Arcane Fist, as from what I've heard of this character, she seems to be a stone-cold killer in combat regardless of how she's armed, and this helps with that. Furthering her already considerable combat capabilities, our Corrupt and Crazy Queen of Cold grabs Attack of Opportunity as her 6th level class feat, letting her slip in more strikes when her foes misstep. After that, she gains the Intimidating Glare skill feat, so that she can terrify the dangerous beasts that she once hunted with greater ease. I think it's worth mentioning that, especially due to the limitation from her Gelid Shard, a lot of her spells from it are going to be the same cold spells found in her Magus spellbook. Turning the page to level 7, Esdeath gains Weapon Specialization and gets her Studious Spells, granting her a pair of extra spell slots that are solely used for buffing spells, which is admittedly very handy. She'll become a master in Intimidation and follow it up with Incredible Initiative, demonstrating her bloodthirsty and gung-ho attitude. For her 4th rank spells then, she'll want to grab Ice Storm to represent the weather-altering aspect of her Ice Commander-in-Chief. As for her 8th level, this frightful frosty fighter features Runic Compression, for the purpose of ensuring that she can always have the Frost Rune on her blade, even if she doesn't have it in her gear or somewhere else. I then have her taking the Catfall skill feat, mainly because I feel like anime ignores follow damage about as much as comic books do. Next up is 9th level, which has a few class features: Alertness, Expert Spellcaster, and Resolve. Of course, there is also her skill increase to Acrobatics that will make her a master in it, and then she gets an Ancestry feat. For it, she will use Merit Magic to nab a few extra spells, one of which is Hydraulic Push, a spell attack that can easily be combined with her spell strikes. There's 2 more spells that I like here specifically from her 5th rank options: Howling Blizzard, which is kind of a larger chill spray, and Mantle of the Frozen Heart, which is just a really fun buffing sort of spell. Esdeath gains some extra ability boosts at 10th level, applying them to her Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Intelligence. Now, I did actually waffle back and forth on her class feat a bit, before settling on Frozen Breath, which is mostly handy in that it provides her with even more Gelid Shard spells, and she'll have more actions to cast them after taking Kip Up as her skill feat, allowing her to bounce back to her feet from prone, all as a free action. Then, with Esdeath's 11th level, she gains Medium Armor Expertise and will take a skill increase to Survival to enhance her ability as a hunter. Feather steps in as her general feat since she needs it to glide through the Frostfield fields she unleashes. Speaking of, she takes Frost Pillar as one of her new spells, giving her a way to flash freeze a foe in a flourish. Following on from Snowcaster, Esdeath can gain Expert Snowcasting at 12th level to slip even more snowy spells into her stores. Still, she might struggle to land those spells, so she focuses a bit on her Intimidation to demoralize and weaken foes with the likes of Battle Cry, allowing her to reduce the saves and armor of her targets to leave them vulnerable. It also just feels fitting for a cold commander to lead the charge with this sort of ability. In addition to gaining Weapon Mastery at lucky level 13, Esdeath becomes a master in her survival skill. She grabs Summon Water Elemental from among her Ancestry feats, though I'm honestly a little iffy on this one. It's limited to level 5 Water Elementals, and none of those are really ice themed. She does though get the Frigid Flurry spell, which is super cool with a way that allows her to fly through and cut apart enemies. Now you may have noticed that this build is a little bit focused on cold damage. With that being the case, Overwhelming Spell Strike is probably a good pickup at 14th level, letting her smash through the resistances of her foes. She also accompanies it with additional lore for Warfare lore, based on the fact that she is a general in the army, so now she immediately has Master Proficiency in Warfare lore, and will go up with it at next level. And not only that, she'll also get 4 ability boosts that she can apply to Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, and Charisma. That gives her another point in Int, so she'll become trained in Nature and apply her regular skill increase to Intimidation to become a Legend of that. As a Magus, she also gains Greater Weapon Specialization and the Juggernaut feature, followed by a General feat, which will be Toughness since she is a melee combatant and may need the extra hit points to hang in combat while she's slinging snowy spells. Getting into those 8th rank spells means that she'll be able to access Arctic Rift, or, if your GM is cool and will let you, Polar Ray, which is somehow the pre-master version of this spell and is vastly superior for the Magus. We're getting into the final lap here at 16th level as Esdeath takes Hasted Assault to give her a focus spell that can grant the quickened effect, which may be important when she has a few sustained spells, such as Summon Elemental, Freezing Rain, or Frost Pillar. She then takes advantage of her intellect and warfare lore with the Battle Planner skill feat, granting her the opportunity to use it for initiative before combat even properly opens. At 17th level, Esdeath becomes a master spellcaster and gains medium armor mastery. She also nets a skill increase to survival to become a legend in it. Finally, while she's kind of a horrific character, from what I've gathered, she's apparently got one hell of a PR team. As such, this vile villainess takes heroic presence as her 17th level ancestry feat, so that she can embolden her allies and bolster them in combat. She secures more snowy spells through Master Snowcasting at 18th level, and then uses Legendary Professional as her skill feat, letting her properly make use of her warfare lore to make a living as a general and war hero. Speeding off from that short stop, 19th level has Esdeath gain the Double Spell Strike feature to help her save on some spells. Now, I was told by some friends that Esdeath doesn't demonstrate enough deftness or dexterity to really warrant making her a legend in acrobatics, so I did go for expertise in athletics instead with her skill increase here. Then she grabs Die Hard as her general feat, as she seems to be a rather zealous individual that has little interest in releasing her hold on life. Finally, we reach 20th level, and start with ability boost to Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. For similar reasons to taking Hasted Assault earlier, she takes the Supreme Spell Strike class feat now, which probably means that she'll want to go back to retrain that other option. Naturally, I have to finish off with Scared to Death as her final skill feat, because it is, without a doubt in my mind, the best skill feat in the game. Speaking of being in game, when it comes to playing Esdeath, she's a pretty straightforward character with a heavy focus on aggression. Some buffing spells such as Haste or Blur probably isn't a bad way to start the fight, but given the limited use of Demoralize, she might want to save using such actions for when she knows she's about to unleash a save-based spell strike. Against enemies with a resistance to cold, she has her Overwhelming Spell Strike, and Dimensional Assault will aid her maneuvering about the battlefield and getting into position to leave enemies off guard, which will let her deal more damage through her Arcane Cascade. Being quickened will help her do that as well, but also has some use with the fact that she has a few sustained spells that she's picked up, such as Summon Elemental for her Ice Cavalry. Now, if you're bringing Esdeath into a free Archetype game, you'll obviously get more Magus feats instead of having to spend those feats on her Gelid Shard Archetype. Given her use of a rapier and her martial mastery, she might also consider something such as a duelist dedication to explore that aspect of her. If you instead want more ice magic, she could become some sort of imp-based primal caster, using something like a witch dedication and picking up a few more cold spells, like Purifying Icicle or Moonlight Ray. With that all covered though, I think we can consider this cold case closed, but maybe you're not hot on that idea. Let's review what we've built and see if that doesn't convince you otherwise. Esdeath is an undying human laughing shadow Magus with the hunter background. This plays directly into her history hunting and surviving in the harsh landscapes of her homeland. She's risen from those humble beginnings to the rank of general, as we can see with her warfare lore and legendary professional skill feat. I feel like the Gelid Shard archetype fits rather perfectly when it comes to resembling her demon's extract, though much of her cold magic comes from the Magus class itself. Between her piercing blade and freezing spells, we're pretty set on making icicles, while she has Frost Pillar to let her freeze people solid. While it's a bit of an odd pick for a Magus, she could use Summon Elementals to summon the snowy soldiers of her Ice Cavalry. Options like Freezing Rain and Ice Storm might serve best as her Ice Commander-in-Chief, though the buffing effects of Elemental Zone are also handy in representing some of the more empowering effects left by it. Unfortunately, the closest we get to her Mahab Dama is through Flavor with the Teleport of Dimensional Assault, potentially representing her freezing time before swiftly moving into position and freeing time from its frozen flow as she strikes. Fearsome and frigid, this fencer flenses flesh from her foes with frightful finesse and flaying frost, forcing them to flee lest they feel her full and ferocious fury. There's more anime to come, but for now, let me know what you think of this build and what other sorts of builds you'd like to see in a comment. If you like what you see here and want more, check out the Monster Monday blog, which is linked below along with the Twitter and Discord. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic and frosty Friday.
I believe I'd like to try falling in love.